through parts of Seattle today after unconfirmed reports of possible immigration enforcement activity near schools. Several campuses moved into shelter in place as students and families waited for answers.
It's tense. It's a tense feeling.
That tension was felt across generations.
I'm a kid of the 60s, so we've been through this.
Now struggling to explain it to his grandchild.
Are we going back to that? I hope not, because there's going to be, a lot of people getting hurt.
Inside classrooms, students say the day grew quieter, uncertainty hanging in the air.
That very much, that gets me terrified.
We spoke with this student with permission from his parents.
I felt very scared, honestly, inside.
Cleveland STEM High is just one of 6 schools that sheltered in place out of an abundance of caution. Others were Aki Kurosi Middle School, Beacon Hill International, Dearborn Park International, Maple Elementary, and Mercer International Middle School. As worry spread, something else happened.
It's a very scary thing for anyone to be going through.
Neighbors, advocates, and community members showed up.
Be a bit of a buffer between us and kids who are just trying to get home after their day at school.
Standing between fear and students.
I feel really hopeful. I feel really proud of my city, of my neighborhood.
Some simply being present.
If there had been ice here, we would have been kind of keeping alert.
This is our Know Your Rights packet.
Others informing families of their rights.
What's it going to be like going to school tomorrow?
I'm just hoping nothing scary happens. I'm just hoping that it's a better tomorrow.
No confirmed immigration enforcement activity was reported at the schools, but the emotional impact was real. And by day's end, one message rang out across campuses and communities.
Stick together.
As of 3 o'clock this afternoon, an SBS spokesperson said they had not seen any ICE officers near the schools. Reporting at Cleveland STEM High School, I'm Maddie White, King 5 News.
Yeah, but if Christie Noel and the administration of Trump get their way, probably would. They're scum.
Americans think the shooting of Renee Good, which they saw with their own eyes, was not justified. My concern and my point is I would think the numbers would be higher. I think the numbers should be higher. So if I'm Donald Trump, given all the other crap that I'm doing and the ish I'm throwing around and the everything everywhere all at once that makes my life, meaning Donald Trump's life, a little bit less complicated because everybody's all over the place doing other things, I'm not fretting at 53%. I'm not fretting at 51%. What do you think these numbers mean to Donald Trump? How do they weigh, do you think, on his calculations?
Well, first of all, I very much share your concern, particularly with respect to the question about whether ICE is keeping us more or less safe. But I would point out the fact that those margins aren't more overwhelming than they are is because the Trump administration and its proxies at various think tanks, other networks, now law firms, have been remarkably effective over the past decade or so at convincing wide swaths of the American population to not believe what they see, to not believe what they hear with their own ears, and to essentially turn off a lot of their critical thinking skills. So I don't view this as a short-term hoodwinking of the American public. Mm-hmm. I view it as the capstone of a very well thought out, logistically admirable, if in no other way, attempt to fundamentally disabuse people of their ability to see what's right in front of their own eyes.
Speaking of people seeing what's in front of their own eyes, what do you make of the fact that Donald Trump says we're just seeing too much of what's happening in Minneapolis?
Look, I think Trump's the ultimate positional bargainer. So he's going to stake out really extreme things and then sort of play good cop, bad cop himself. Obviously, he doesn't like where the polling number is going. But the truth is, I agree. It doesn't. We're not on a glide path to tyranny anymore. He's a tyrant. So tyrants are fundamentally anti-democratic. They don't really care about the majority, but he does care about the narrative. And is he winning? Is he successful? Well, what is the narrative that's percolating out there? That matters a lot more to him than polls. And those two things sometimes don't go hand in hand. And the narrative right now, and it's one of the rare times that the stories that are not what's coming from the administration are being dominated by what's happening on the ground, by the people who are talking about all this stuff. And what you see online is terrible story after terrible story. And then ICE agents falling down on the ice. I mean, they look ridiculous and also cruel simultaneously. And the effect on the polling and also on the narrative is that you have a whole swath of MAGA media that's not there with him. And they're not only not there with him, they're not just ignoring it, they're criticizing it. They're saying this is just too far, I'm not there for this. There's part of the core right-wing media that has done something that they've never done before, though. They're fully on board now with the Insurrection Act. That was not the case 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Peter Doocy was championing it. That would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. So, I think there's a lot of questions here, but one thing is that parts of his narrative engine are getting more extreme and more consolidated. That core and that center has gotten around with a much more might makes right approach. They're fully on board with Trump's tyranny. The parts that are fractured off and splintered, they're being much more vocal in criticizing him, and that's going to continue. And the last thing I'll just say is that this is a real testament to why this is an information war. Because I don't think that the polls would even be where they are right now if you didn't have people in Minnesota not just doing the work on the ground and protesting and demonstrating, but telling a story about what's happening there in an effective way so people can see it with their own eyes. That's the thing that is moving those numbers even that little bit. And it's a testament to why this is a long arc and a long fight. So that's all the pieces coming together. But on a trendline front, I don't think the Insurrection Act is right in front of us, but I think he's not going to play that card right now. But he's inching closer and closer toward it and consolidating power in the most core centerpiece. That's the thing that I think is a real tell. That the Peter Doocy switching on that to me was very concerning.
I agree with you.
Sorry, Steve Doocy, not Peter.
Peter's father.
That's right.
I agree with Angelo on this, Michael, specifically because when you look at the Insurrection Act, and Michael Steele and I talked about this extensively in the break the other day, because I'm like, is he going to do martial law? Is he going to do the Insurrection Act? And we looked at it, and the Insurrection Act is specifically about a place. And so if he was to invoke the Insurrection Act, it would be about Minnesota specifically. And I think that the ratcheting up of the rhetoric there, the tear gassing to Angelo's point, we've seen it because people are taking video. Okay, so the agents who are tear gassing people, but also the videos of some of the protesters there's the tear gas. Then there's videos I was on air last week in the evening where there were firecrackers being thrown at some of the federal agents there, and those were being thrown by the protesters. I think that the rhetoric is being made is trying to ratchet up the temperature to give the president an excuse to say Insurrection Act and or martial law. And I think I just continue to believe this is really about an election. It's about 2026. It's about the elections in Minnesota. It is about his immigration crackdown, his immigration agenda. But I think everything Donald Trump does, because I listen to what he says, harkens back to the last election, and he's thinking about the next one because he's saying it often and loudly.
Yeah, so I agree in part with what you're saying, but I think I would actually go a little bit further. This is clearly right now about Minnesota, and any application of the Insurrection Act or military force in any form or fashion is probably going to be limited to Minnesota. But Angelo hit on something really important that we're not talking about enough. He used the word tyranny. I prefer the word authoritarianism, either or. We're not talking about it approaching. We're not talking about it being imminent. For discrete populations of the United States, it's already here. If you are of certain ethnicities or backgrounds, the Constitution is out the window and ICE can just swoop you up in the street wearing masks, not identifying themselves, and maybe taking you to a DHS holding facility, maybe sending you to something not much better than a concentration camp in South America, maybe just taking you for a ride and dropping you 10 miles off from your home with no way to get back. But the reason I bring that up in the context of the Insurrection Act and its locality provisions is that I think we need to view whatever is happening now in Minnesota or whatever is going to happen in Minnesota as the dress rehearsal for something at a much larger scale. And if we don't stop it here in its infancy, it's just going to get worse.
Dinner is more than just a meal.
It's just going to get worse.
Well,
very sobering.
That was very, very sobering, Angelo, and I agree with it 100%, because it's not just the pieces. It is all of those pieces coming together in a way that the Insurrection Act is a step. And once you get that piece done and everyone is bought in, which is what he's trying to sell us on now. He's trying to sell the narrative, back to your point about narratives, that, because of the bad behavior of these Democrats in this city, in this state, because of the bad behavior of these, these insurrectionists and these folks who are out there demonstrating, I have no other choice but to invoke an act to protect the rest of you. I have to protect the rest of you. So bear with me. Bear with me.
The national emergency is avoiding the national emergency.
There you go, Alicia.
The national emergency is anything he wanted to be.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it.
And I think what Michael said and what you're making a point about is that we don't talk about how we got to this place, why we're talking about Minnesota. Because what we're talking about, why we're even talking about Minnesota, why this is happening in Minnesota is because of the right-wing media, because of the narrative. A little, sort of James O'Keefe wannabe went into Minnesota and did a video that was building on that storyline about, what was supposedly fraud coming out of the Somali community, and then basically said this is this grand conspiracy. The Democrats and the Somali immigrants are taking billions of dollars out. Look at all this corruption. Here's all this video evidence. It percolated in the right-wing media. It created this appetite and this demand to do something. That's when the escalation started. And to your point as well about sort of avoiding this national thing but federalizing it, there are a dozen other wannabes. There are 24 other wannabes that can go out there and do these types of hit pieces, have them saturate through the right-wing media at scale in multiple cities across the country, and then because they're essentially in cahoots with the federal government, they can exploit and operationalize that to then go ahead and engage in some kind of a federal and legitimate action. But the reason we're even here is because of what happened with the right-wing media and a story that they were telling weeks ago, far before it even penetrated into the rest of the American zeitgeist.
To get ICE out of the state. Today marks 2 weeks since the deadly ICE shooting in South Minneapolis, sparking widespread protests and an increased federal response to the Twin Cities. We have team coverage of these developing stories, but first let's get over to the newsroom with Audrey Russo. Audrey.
Yeah, Alicia, lawmakers and the Attorney General this morning will accuse the president of weaponizing the feds to undermine Americans' First Amendment rights. Specifically, they claim the Trump administration is shielding ICE officers from consequences when they use force against protesters. Now, today's presser adds to the dozens we've covered, frankly, in the last 2 weeks, dealing with ICE and constitutional rights. Like this one yesterday, where a group of police chiefs argued that ICE officers are harassing and racially profiling people in their neighborhoods, including their own officers. Now, Border Patrol Commander-at-Large Greg Bavino argues the only people being targeted by ICE agents are dangerous criminals.
These are the kinds of individuals this operation focuses on. Individuals who escalate situations and endanger others. Again, our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, and Ma and Pa America.
If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
Now, President Trump, on the other hand, is admitting that ICE officers sometimes make mistakes. And I'll have more on his comments about that and on the shooting death of Renee Good coming up in 30 minutes. But for now, I'll send things back to you.
Guess what? Just like
take the next step in treating your moderate. Paul Schnell, he only oversees state prisons, not local jails. That is important because it's unclear what systems, timeframes, or even documentation that Bovina is using to make such allegations. When Schnell says any people that the feds are publicly citing have either never been incarcerated in a Minnesota prison, and if there was an immigration hold, sometimes called a detention, if any of that ever existed, they were in fact released to ICE.
All right, good afternoon.
In his first public news conference since last month's immigration enforcement surge in Minneapolis, Border Czar Greg Bavino defended agent tactics.
Our officers remain professional, focused, courteous, and committed to the mission.
He also says the federal agency arrested 113 violent offenders over the weekend, while also alleging nearly 1,400 undocumented criminals with an immigration hold are in state custody. Department of Corrections Commissioner Paul Schnell denying that.
We simply cannot figure out where these names are coming from.
Schnell says there are only 207 non-U.S. citizens in the prison system right now. And in a news release says state law requires his agency notify ICE when someone in their custody is undocumented, and it's up to ICE to place a hold and arrange to pick them up.
We have not had a request from them to say, turn over the 207 people we have detainers for in your custody. No.
Bovino also accuses the state of releasing nearly 500 undocumented criminals with holds. Schnell lists several people the feds have cited, saying public records show they were either never in state custody, were taken into ICE custody, or are in another jurisdiction.
Here we are trying to work together and collaborate, and yet this information is being put out that's just fundamentally false. And that's why I think we want to make sure that we're trying to correct the record. And trust me, if there was a human error made on our part, we're going to own that, address it, fix it, figure out what happened. But to date, we have not found a single instant of that.
Schnell reiterates that the DOC has never been in violation of an ICE detainer, and last year, in fact, released 84 people to ICE, notifying them and even facilitating that transfer, only saying that state law prohibits them from holding people beyond their release date or terms of bail. So again, they will not hold people in prison if, because of state law, says they've got to be let go once they serve their time or conditions of bail.
Well, Schnell, like you mentioned, in charge of state prisons, are they talking about local jails or county jails?
It's a good question. We don't know. We don't know where Bovino is getting any of this data tonight. And the two are very separate, too. We don't have that data from local jails and who might be there on an immigration hold. We also don't have correct names or date of births to try to do some of our own digging on that as well.
This thing tonight is about that want and wish for better communication. Multiple chiefs of police and sheriffs stood as one law enforcement community today to tell you true stories of bad situations with law-abiding Minnesotans and actual police officers getting in the crosshairs of ICE or Border Patrol through no fault of their own, basically being pulled over because of the color of their skin. It's getting to these police chiefs and departments, those who swore here at home to protect and serve you.
None of us are suggesting that there isn't a legitimate lawful authority to operate here as federal agents, but we are trying to come together to say, can we please find a pathway forward? Can we find a way to make sure that we can do these things without scaring the hell out of our community members and freaking everyone out? People are afraid right now, and I get it.
So, if you support law and order, if you support our law enforcement in Minnesota, that's the ask from the heads of it in our state to the feds right now.
In Minneapolis tomorrow. A source is telling NBC News that Vance is coming to meet with local leaders and community members for a roundtable discussion. They haven't said who that would be involved with just yet, but this comes as the Justice Department is looking into the offices of some of our local leaders. Megan McPherson is joining us now with a breakdown of this latest legal action, Megan.
Good morning. The offices of Governor Walz, Twin Cities Mayors Jacob Fry and Kali Herr, and Attorney General Keith Ellison confirmed their offices received federal subpoenas. Hennepin and Ramsey counties tell us they were also on the receiving end of a subpoena for county records related to federal immigration enforcement. A copy of a subpoena sent to Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Fry's office shows the Department of Justice is demanding records, documents, and communications dating back to January 1st. Prosecutors are specifically seeking anything tied to federal immigration enforcement, including records that could show refusal to assist immigration officials. Last week, sources told NBC News the DOJ is examining the actions of Governor Walz and Mayor Fry, relying on a rarely used federal statute dating back to the Civil War era. And as both leaders have openly criticized federal agents operating in the state, federal officials argue that rhetoric and actions by elected leaders may have fueled interference with immigration enforcement. However, one legal expert tells KARE 11 criticism of federal agents is not a crime.
It's that collusion and corruption between elected officials and these anarchists that are intent on creating violence for law enforcement.
There's no evidence that the mayor, the governor, or anyone else has encouraged anyone to commit a crime against a federal agent. Rhetoric that strongly condemns the federal law enforcement operations in this state is First Amendment protected speech.
In a statement Tuesday, Walz called the DOJ investigation a, quote, partisan distraction, while inviting President Trump to see the state, to see Minnesota's values in action. I'll share a legal expert's take on those claims and if they hold up under the law.
Tonight, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem announcing arrests are coming any moment now related to an anti-ICE protest inside a St. Paul church on Sunday.
This as church's lead pastor responds as well, and protest organizers double down on their reason for being there. Our So-Young Kim has been following this story for us all day long. And So-Young, you spoke with the protest organizers today. What did they say about the federal investigation now?
They tell us they stand by their actions. Now they're calling for the resignation of the pastor they allege works for ICE. This was the scene inside City's church in St. Paul Sunday when a group of demonstrators interrupted a worship gathering. Organizers say they were protesting the church's possible connection with ICE.
It was brought to our attention that a pastor at this church was a regional field director for ICE. And because all four of us are Christian, that was quite disturbing, like to our spirit.
The lead pastor of City's church releasing this statement Tuesday that reads in part, quote, on Sunday, January 18th, a group of agitators jarringly disrupted our worship gathering. They accosted members of our congregation, frightened children, and created a scene marked by intimidation and threat. Such conduct is shameful, unlawful, and will not be tolerated. The U.S. Department of Justice is investigating whether the protesters violated the federal FACE Act that protects religious freedom in places of worship. When asked about it, organizers dismissed the potential probe.
Instead of these issues being addressed, what do we get from the federal government? Threats of investigating those of us who were involved in a peaceful demonstration at City's church.
We came in peace. And there's not a person in there was blocked from exiting. If they needed to leave, they could leave.
A spokesperson for St. Paul Police says officers responded Sunday morning, and there's an active disorderly conduct investigation as well. Live in studio tonight, So-Young Kim.
Officers and local leaders over the immigration crackdown in Minnesota are escalating to a new level.
The Department of Justice is investigating several local elected officials to see if they have impeded federal immigration operations with their public statements. Maury Glover joining us now from the newsroom with more on what these subpoenas could mean.
Well, the elected officials are calling the investigation a bullying tactic meant to quiet political opposition, and at least one local political science professor believes any possible charges would be hard to prove in court.
For several weeks, Operation Metro Surge has brought thousands of federal agents to Minnesota to target immigrants living in the country illegally. Now the war of words over those immigration enforcement efforts is entering a new arena. The Justice Department has subpoenaed the offices of Governor Tim Walz, Attorney General Keith Ellison, and the mayors of Minneapolis and St. Paul, Jacob Fry and Kali Herr, as well as officials in Hennepin and Ramsey counties, as part of an investigation into whether they obstructed or impeded federal immigration operations. The subpoenas ask for any records relating to cooperation or lack of cooperation with federal law enforcement and a refusal to come to the aid of immigration officials.
I have never heard of the federal government starting an investigation for elected officials over the issue of impeding its operations.
University of Minnesota political science professor Larry Jacobs believes the investigation is an attempt by the Trump administration to get local officials to back off their support for protesters who are exercising their First Amendment rights. Jacobs says,
well, that's the thing about these stupid right-wingers, MAGA and Trump supporters. They want the protesters, people that exercise First Amendment free speech, all that stuff. That they want people to stand down, cease to says, back off, and just go home and let ICE and Trump administration just do whatever they want. That's what they want had to happen. And it's saying, oh, if you stand up for your First Amendment free speech, you're going to jail. Just like they're trying to do with like the Don Lemon, the protesters. In the church or on the street, or on social media. I kid you not.
If charges were brought, they'd be hard to prove in court because the elected officials had specifically told Minnesotans to protest peacefully and not obstruct ICE enforcement efforts.
This can't simply be giving a press conference. There needs to be an orchestrated effort to stop ICE, and there needs to be some kind of written record of that. I think it's going to be very difficult to find that.
But Jacobs says the subpoenas will also bring a new level of scrutiny to Governor Walz and the others at a time when their energies are needed elsewhere.
There may be no modern precedent for what's going on. It's absolutely extraordinary. The eyes of the country are on Minnesota.
Now the subpoenas call for representatives from those offices to testify before a grand jury at the federal courthouse in Minneapolis on February 3rd. In the newsroom, Maureen Glover. On.
Go serve a subpoena on the real agitators, like the guy that was saying on Tim Walz's house, call him a freaking R word, or that Cam guy, or this guy, or the Trump, or the right-winger agitators, or the Proud Boys. I serve them subpoenas. Not the good people that are exercising for First Amendment free speech and want to have due process. Have I got a juicy good clip for you? We're going to run a montage and get out of here with this one right here.
We, as law enforcement community, have been receiving endless complaints about civil rights violations in our streets from U.S. citizens. What we're hearing is they're being stopped in traffic stops or on the street with no cause and being forced to demand paperwork to determine if they are here legally. As this went on over the past 2 weeks, we started hearing from our police officers the same complaints as they fell victim to this while off duty. Every one of these individuals is a person of color who has had this happen to them.
Well, you just heard from Brooklyn Park, Minnesota Police Chief Mark Burley, who detailed that ICE is not only abusing ordinary American citizens or those suspected of being in the country illegally. It turns out ICE agents are also racially profiling and harassing actual sworn officers, police officers in Minnesota. Now, it is important to hear more from Burley and what he had to say about the experiences that deputies have had with ICE agents on the ground in Minneapolis and Minnesota in general. Because make no mistake about it, you will hear over and over again from defenders of the Trump administration or those who are, very concerned about carrying out immigration enforcement, raids, that no, this isn't happening. Everything is normal. Everything is above, above any possible criminality or illegality. You don't have to worry about anything. ICE is just trying to do their jobs. But you know what? Not according to, again, Brooklyn Park, Minnesota Police Chief Mark Burley. Let's hear more from what he had to say.
Having one of those busy days, living the dream.
In Brooklyn Park, one particular officer that shared her story with me was stopped as she passed ICE going down the roadway. When they boxed her in, they demanded her paperwork, of which she's a U.S. citizen and clearly would not have any paperwork. When she became concerned about the rhetoric and the way she was being treated, she pulled out her phone. In an attempt to record the incident, the phone was knocked out of her hands, prevented her from recording it. The officer had their guns drawn during this interaction. And after the officer became so concerned, they were forced to identify themselves as a Brooklyn Park police officer in hopes of slowing the incident and de-escalating the incident down. The agents then immediately left after hearing this, making no other comments, no other apologies, just got in their vehicles and left. I wish I could tell you that this was an isolated incident. In fact, many of the chiefs standing behind me have similar incidents with their off-duty officers. If it is happening to our officers, it pains me to think of how many of our community members are falling victim to this every day.
You literally have militarized federal agents pulling over random people who don't look lily white to ask them for their papers, to ask them whether they're here in this country legally. Now, look, there might be some who think that's totally okay. I don't fall in that category at all. Because those types of actions by militarized federal agents are in no way indicative of a free society.
I don't want to see militarized law enforcement or federal agents on our streets, harassing and terrorizing ordinary people. And it's one thing to hear the types of comments you just heard from Police Chief Burley,
when they're asked for ID,
from, let's say, a left-winger who has espoused views that are supportive of open borders, right? You can nitpick and you can say, oh, well, this person's got an agenda. Are you going to make the same argument about this police chief? By the way, he wasn't the only member of law enforcement who's been raising red flags over what ICE has been carrying out. So let me give you a few other examples. There's Chief Axel Henry from the St. Paul Police. He had something to say too. He was quoted as saying, can we find a way to make sure that we can do these things, meaning enforce our immigration laws, without scaring the hell out of our community members and freaking everyone out? People are scared to death and afraid to go outside. Is this the America everyone wants to live in? This has gone beyond enforcing immigration laws. I mean, it had already gone beyond enforcing immigration laws well before the police chief, Burley, decided to hold this press conference. We're just going to be okay with racially profiling people in America, which is a diverse country that has people from all over the world who came from other countries, sure, but might have been here for multiple generations. They just don't, they don't have blonde hair, light skin. Imagine pulling cops over to ask them for their papers. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. And I'm glad that local law enforcement decided to carry out this press conference and let the American people know what's really going on in the ground. Because, yeah, I get it. Our media is super polarized. Our media tends to serve validation to one political extreme or the other. But what's the reality? And the reality is we are normalizing militarized federal agents on our streets. And do we want to live in that kind of society? My answer is no. I don't want to live in that type of society. In fact, I thought the United States was supposed to be better than that. I thought the United States was supposed to stand out from other authoritarian countries by not allowing people who work for us to terrorize us. And when I say work for us, I mean that in every sense of the word. We pay their damn salaries. We pay them to enforce the laws that our elected representatives passed. ICE isn't supposed to go around coercing people, threatening people, shooting people, profiling people, but that's what's going on right now. It could have something to do with the fact that, Trump doesn't really care about basic things like training. I mean, he's a moron himself, not someone who's really interested in new ideas, new information, getting trained on doing his job properly. Not really something he personally is interested in. But ICE officers went from having 6 months of training, which I would venture to say still isn't enough, but okay. They went from 6 months of training to just 47 days of training. You want to know why? I'm the 47th president. Oh, wouldn't it be cute if we cut down their training to 47 days? What a loser. Total, undeniable loser. I have grown, and it's not a new thing. This has been percolating for a while. I have grown increasingly distrustful of our government, and I am not in favor of concentrating more power in our government. Unfortunately, that has been the case. That's what has happened, okay, over the last several years, especially beginning with Trump's first administration. And now we have a situation where we have militarized police officials, or I should say militarized federal agents, ICE officials, Border Patrol agents, roaming our streets, basically abusing people, racially profiling people. And I thought the mechanisms that we have in place to fight back against this type of authoritarianism, tyranny, harassment would maybe work. But here's the problem. It doesn't work when you don't have an opposition party that has, courage, a little bit of fight in them. I mean, where are the Democrats on this issue? Other than tweeting about it, other than whining about it, other than putting statements out about it, which, by the way, us American citizens can just do ourselves. We don't need to elect someone to do that for us. But they haven't done much other than that.
TFE Mode Lopez versus Shakur Stevenson.
It's so utterly frustrating, and it's crazy. It's crazy. Now you literally have local law enforcement talking about how their own deputies are being racially profiled and harassed by militarized federal agents purporting to carry out immigration enforcement. Are they? Are they? Stories coming out regarding individuals who were arrested on January 6th for storming the Capitol. Looks like some of them have gotten hired as ICE officials, or I should say ICE agents. This is absolutely crazy. So this is also hurting the Republicans politically, because I know these piece of crap, cowardly politicians who might actually have an issue with what the Trump administration is doing but aren't saying a damn thing about it, they'll only be moved to...
Well, here's another thing. You think people want this to happen as well, too? Check this out.
Bringing this man out of the house, wearing clothes that really weren't fit for the 7-degree morning that it was here. You mentioned it. He's wearing nothing but pajama shorts and Crocs and a baby blanket that was thrown on him kind of at the last second by one of his relatives inside the house.
Yeah, absolutely crazy.
Action, if maybe they're starting to lose support among Republican voters. And it looks like, I mean, when it comes to independent voters, Trump is done. Totally lost that coalition that he built in order to win the popular vote. But overall, when you look at the American electorate, where are their hearts and minds on the issue of ICE essentially terrorizing communities across the country? I shouldn't say across the country. Terrorizing blue cities and towns across the country. Let's watch.
This was such a strength for the President of the United States. The net approval rating on Trump's administration program to deport immigrants who are in the country illegally. It was plus 18 points at the beginning of his presidency, net approval rating. That is very, very positive. It was one of the most popular things.
How about a better take? Here we go. That was okay take, but here we go. Check this out. Here we go.
Really? You are disgusting! You are
neighbor shot.
Really? You are disgusting! You are Really? You are disgusting! You are
neighbor.
Really? You are disgusting! You are
neighbors.
Yeah.
In the Trump administration agenda. But now you come over to this side of the screen. Look at that. That's over a 25-point switcheroo in the negative direction. Now the program is way, way, way underwater at minus 8 points. Okay, the Trump administration is prioritizing deporting dangerous criminals or others. You go back to June, the majority of Americans, 53%, said the Trump administration was prioritizing deporting dangerous criminals compared to just 47% who said others. Come to this side. What do we have now? A complete switcheroo. Now what you see is the majority of the American people believe that the Trump administration is not prioritizing deporting dangerous criminals. In fact, they're prioritizing deporting others at 56%.
ICE even arrested some Native Americans. They detained Native Americans who, I don't know if they need to be informed about this. They have more of a right to be here than anyone else. And when it comes to local law enforcement and how the DOJ is handling some of the allegations against these agents and their, harassment and profiling of literal law enforcement deputies, it doesn't seem like they care too much at all about what's going on. In fact, they want to punish local law enforcement. So today, in fact, the Justice Department sent subpoenas to at least 5 Democratic officials in Minnesota. That included Governor Tim Walz, unsurprisingly, Mayor Jacob Fry of Minneapolis, and Mayor Coley Herr of St. Paul. Okay, so the subpoenas are related to policies on immigration enforcement efforts in the state. And, their big gripe is that, the police are standing in our way when there's really no indication of that whatsoever. That's the excuse they usually use. And I get it. By the way, I get that there are very particular provisions in some sanctuary city and state laws that, if you ask me, don't make sense. The American people overwhelmingly want to deport individuals who are here illegally who have been convicted of crimes. So if, you have the federal government asking municipalities and cities, hey, here is a retainer for this individual after they serve their sentence because we want to deport them. How about in that one very narrow instance, you work with them so they can't have something to hang their hat on as they're terrorizing ordinary people in communities like Minneapolis, St. Paul.
They say 40%.
But honestly, at this point, that's my only issue with these sanctuary city laws. When they do provide cover and refuse to comply in specific instances of someone who's been convicted, who is a criminal and should be deported. But other than that, the Trump administration has absolutely no justification for what we are seeing on our streets right now. The chaos and the intimidation tactics are the point. And, I'm sure Trump is looking at the polling. He wants nothing more than constant validation and ass-kissing. It is pathetic. I've never seen a grown man be this obsessed with himself, but here we are. And so I'm sure he's seen some of this polling, and wouldn't you know it, he's softening his message a little bit when it comes to, the 37-year-old mom who was shot in the face by an ICE agent in Minnesota, Renee Good. Now, if you can remember, previously, Trump said of Renee Good, immediately after she was shot to death by an ICE agent, quote, she behaved horribly, and then she ran him over. She didn't try to run him over, she ran him over. Now, we've all seen the videos featuring Renee Good getting shot to death by an ICE agent, and in no way did she run an ICE agent over. In no way. And maybe he got some backlash for being a disgusting creep and defaming an American citizen based on nothing. Based on, he hadn't even watched the video yet, by the way. He saw the video for the first time during an interview. But now he's changed his tune a little bit. But of course, there's got to be a narcissistic reason why. So see if you can catch it. Let's watch.
They're going to make mistakes sometimes. ICE is going to be too rough with somebody, or, they're dealing with rough people. They're going to make a mistake. Sometimes it can happen. We feel terribly. I felt horribly when I was told that the young woman who was had the tragedy, it's a tragedy, it's a horrible thing. Everybody would say, ICE would say the same thing. But when I learned her parents, and her father in particular I hope he still is, but I don't know, was a tremendous Trump fan. He was all for Trump, loved Trump. And, it's terrible. I was told that by a lot of people. They said, oh, he loves you. He was I hope he still feels that way. I don't know, it's a hard situation. But her father was a tremendous, and parents were tremendous Trump fans. That's so sad. It just happens. It's terrible.
Love your own police is pussy.
At Burger King, you inspire the menu.
It just happens. It's terrible.
That Donald Trump is creeped on?
It just happens?
That's right.
It's sad because her parents are Trump supporters. That's why it's sad. You don't think it's sad that because of your policies and your hiring practices when it comes to ICE, you have created chaotic situations on American streets that have led to people getting killed.
Your balls, you cocksucker.
How many people who have been detained by ICE during your second term have died while in ICE custody? So far this year is set to break a new record. And we already know about how many literal American citizens have been detained by ICE for being suspected of being undocumented. Even though they say over and over again, I'm an American citizen, I'm an American citizen. Who the hell walks around with immigration papers. Who the hell walks around with their birth certificate?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
I guess if you have a little bit of a tan, tint in your skin, you better walk around with your birth certificate. You better walk around with your papers. We live in a free society? That's what this is? No, this isn't a free society. Hasn't been in a long, long time.
That was native got shot.
I mean, you couple this with people getting confronted by cops at their residences because they posted something critical of Israel. Is that what happens in a free and open society? Is that what happens in a democracy?
Well, it's like you got Trump, and administration and all shit like that, going to people's houses because they post something distasteful and displeasurable against Trump and the MAGA and the administration and against his great ICE agents and fine law enforcement agencies and against agenda. So these people need to be investigated. Oh, these people are protesting exercising their First Amendment free speech. So they need to be investigated and face felony charges. Anybody who talks shit about them needs to be charged. What if you make a post on social media or make a video on social media? You need to be locked up and face felony charges, natural life, lock them up. Life of that pro. Including like big people like Don Lemon, Jolly, and Robbie Rose Streamer, even small people like me, and I mean, it's like he's probably gonna go after people like Lord Shark, Chuck Bronson, and other First Amendment cop watchers and auditors out there.
Democracy? The Democrats who were fear-mongering about the loss of democracy the most, of course, only during the election.
Carolina, Fort Worth.
Suddenly super quiet.
Bow.
Congress is useless. Okay? These elected lawmakers, these political leaders are useless. Too busy fundraising, not enough time to actually do a damn thing to protect the American people from what the federal government is currently up to, from what the White House is currently up to, hiring a bunch of
real auditors,
criminals
not the fucking freak fraud,
who don't respect our rule of law, don't respect our democratic process and the outcome of our general election. Those are the people who are getting hired for ICE right now. And rather than having appropriate training, which I can't believe was only 6 months, but it was, they're getting 47 days. Congratulations, America.
Yeah.
This is what tyranny looks like.
No.
I hope you...
She said 47 days. No. Honey, these fucking ICE agents don't get 47 days. They get 47 hours of training. 47 hours, not 47 days. And the protocol that ICE are supposed to get, I think it's 4 to 6 months of training. Same with the police officers out there. 47 hours. You know why? Because Trump is 47th president. Not 47 days, 47 hours. This is coming. And they get a $50,000 bonus. And these fucking ICE agents are getting a big fucking bonus for, they're getting a huge paycheck. Every time they make a fucking arrest, every time they put people in detention like that, or they go out there timid, they get paycheck. Well, half America is fucking poor, living a paycheck, and you got people that are living on Social Security and food stamps, have to get the money from food bank. But the bill. Well, that's what happened. You got the big bill out there. Gets all his fucking chrome money. You get a part of it. Bernie, get a part. Rest of you, fuck off. Hey, round them up and lock them all up. Yeah. That's Trump for you.
Enjoy the armed federal agents in your towns, right-wing voters. But you probably won't. That's the thing. Because we're so divided and political actions are motivated by partisanship. So it's only the blue cities and the blue states that are dealing with this. But I just want to ask you, if you happen to be a conservative or you happen to vote for Republicans, how would you feel if there were militarized federal agents roaming your streets and asking you for your papers? And do you want to live in a country like that? Because I don't.
Every time you ring the bell below.
Or how would you feel if they go up to you or intimidate you and say, you have no First Amendment constitutional rights? Or we're going to violate your Fourth Amendment rights, and you don't have to defend their right. Yeah, make that make sense. Here's a bonus clip. I got one right here. So, here we go. Like I said, this is what the MAGA and Trump are trying to say. Here we go. Here you have it.
This rhetoric must end. Stop demonizing hardworking law enforcement. They are brave. They are doing God's work. They are protecting people who could lose their life in any given city at any given time. Stop demonizing them. They are heroes.
This is a little different.
But hello, we got more, baby. Of course, like Lisa Lake says, we always got more. We got something good. You ready? We're gonna get the fuck out of here with this one. So
They said it was about
I'm on here, my
safety.
job. Peace out. Here we go.
They said it was about law. But when the government hides behind fake plates and rental vans, it's not safety. It's fascism in broad daylight. Why?
Fuck, guys.
Won't dissipate.
Right here.
They pull up slow in a rented van, no plates, no name, no badge on their hands. They say they're the law, but they don't play fair. They snatch our people like they're ghosts in the air. They don't sneak at night, they come when it's bright. Broad daylight raids in plain damn sight. No warrant shown, no crime to claim, just fear and silence in freedom's name.
We've seen a story, it don't end well when the state turns our streets into a prison cell. From jackboot squads to secret files, now it's ice and modern style.
Black and modern spots. Fuck guys, we won't disarray, won't disarray. Fuck guys, we're still right here, right here. They cover their plates, they hide who they are. Unmarked cars from rental lots, parked by the bar. They drag our neighbors with no due cause while waving the flag and breaking the law. They rip families apart on a Tuesday afternoon and call it justice while it's over too soon. But we see the truth and we're calling it out. This is America and we're gonna shout.
History warns us loud and clear, when fear takes power, the end is near. But freedom's louder, we won't bend, we'll fight this fight until the end.
I rather fuck my fuck guys. We won't disobey, won't disobey. Fuck my fuck guys. We're still right here, right here. I rather fuck my fuck guys. We won't disobey, won't disobey. Fuck my fuck guys. We're still right here, right here. This isn't safety. This isn't justice. This is secret police and rental vans. This is tyranny wrapped in a flag. And we, the people, will not comply.
Never.
We are the heartbeat, we are the flame. We're not just a slogan, we're more than a name. From border towns to city streets, from factory floors to college seats.
You cannot erase us, you cannot divide. The soul of this nation is on our side. We'll march through the storm, we'll tear down the wall, 'cause this land belongs to us all. Where you rather fuck guys, we won't disappear, won't disappear. Rather fuck guys, we're still right here, right here. Where you rather fuck guys, we won't disappear. Where you rather fuck guys, we're still right here, right here.
I'm out here, my job. Peace out. Buckeyes! Happy Buckeyes Agent Day! Fuck them all, baby. Fuck them all. Boss them all.